It's been 5 years since I have posted about Planet Coaster, and a lot of things can happen in 5 years. For the majority of it, I wasn't playing. Outside of finally beating the campaign, getting 100% of the achievements, I wasn't really finding the spark to get back into using it as a creative tool. 5 years ago, I finished my last park, Foggy Meadows, and then went on holiday, ironically to Disneyland, thinking I'm gonna be inspired for my next project. And I came back and didn't really play as much as I used to. And that was the case until recently when I saw Jan BK's Marvelous Realms project on YouTube. Jan is a content creator and has amazed me with what they've built on console, and he was accepting car submissions to fill his parking lot. I finished the blueprint, shared it, and then I started to sink 100 plus hours into a new project of my own very quickly. And now we have new Zephyr. And I think there are two main reasons why this project is finished. This is the box that I set out at the start of the project. One of the main problems that I sometimes run into is the paralysis of choice. I can make or do anything at any scale, which means I think about doing it all, but you don't actually place the first piece. Or worse, burn out halfway through. This box limited how big I could build, and I still put hours into that small space. So the lesson is to be more realistic with how much you can actually achieve. And sometimes limitations can be beneficial. Forcing yourself to use a certain ride or certain pieces or even a specific theme, and I feel you'll be more creative within those boundaries. The other thing was motivation. My motivations on building things are now focused more on intrinsic rather than extrinsic sources, and keeping that is important. Focusing on extrinsic sources for your motivation is possible, but the values will change over time. They are nice to have, but you can't rely on them. And that is how I feel I had the drive to use Planet Coaster as a creative tool again. I need to do things for myself, and if people think those are cool, that's even better. So let's talk about floating islands. I've wanted to explore the theme further since Smoky Heights, and there have been multiple attempts. A previous concept was dueling wooden coasters, but I found the island was too big and got halfway through the layout before stopping, which is a good example of why I made the box. It started in a testing world as usual, and the initial concept quickly began to come together. I personally like to work on projects by breaking them down into scenes or places, the first of which was the lift hill. The vision I had was of a moving element at the top, and that quickly became a windmill that powered the chain lift. And I also wanted to catch that feeling that it was cutting through the middle of the island, which led to building the tall column of houses on the side of the track. I'm in favour of working smart if you can. These buildings were some of the first ones I made in Planet Coaster, influenced by the in-game pirate theme and also the hacienda style of architecture. Those were cheekily adapted into the project, which started to give me the block palette that informed the rest of the build. With this, I started to build assets that I could drop in place onto buildings, and I would recommend this method. Building a set of modules that you can quickly put together on a building is really good for developing an idea fast and realizing if it is the right thing. At this stage of the project, the layout was also unfinished. I had the vision of the out and back section spanning the side of the island, but I also left room for scenery to influence the layout's progress too. The idea of a lighthouse came from the need for a vertical focal point. I knew if the ride started going below the surface of the island, I needed something to balance that out on top. I've made lighthouses in the past, but this led me into trying to develop a better light beacon with multiple pan and tilt lights and searchlights on display sequences. And I was humbled by how simply using one of the rotating spherical billboards got the same result that I was hoping for. And using 4 more roller coasters as scenery pieces, it was done. The street bears reference to a few friends who were the first to welcome me back. Ridley's is a bookstore that has a full interior, which came in handy for the first shot of the gramophone, and Mineral Junction is a small facade that has all of your mineral needs. and a pipe for good measure. And among the other detailing, I snuck in 2 more references. The Bandit Lumber Workshop sitting between the upper and lower parts of the island, and a reference to another floating island project that I watched at least a couple times building this, Volvara by Silverette. And Volvara got me looking into Reshade. So Reshade is a third-party software that changes how Planet Coaster looks. And messing around with that, I found depth of field options and a setting called Atmosphere. This adjusted the distance you could see hiding away the ground, making this feel more like it's above the clouds. And with this new power, I started sharing screenshots. With the screenshots, another tip is setting up a camera angle with one of the security cameras, and then finishing everything that is in frame. At the end, you'll have a screenshot of the area that is done, and you can share the projects with people and even start to get feedback, and then you repeat that process. And this ties into the idea of splitting the project up into scenes and places, choosing a place that you want to screenshot, setting up the camera, and putting in those final details. And with that, you can start to fill in the gaps between those places and actually finish the project. The filming of the footage was done through OBS alongside another program called Cheat Engine. This allows you to adjust a setting called Speed Hack, which can slow the game down by 50 or 25%. And this is useful for making your graphic settings higher than you would normally run them, and avoiding low frame rates, knowing you can speed the footage up by 2 or 4 times in editing. And using a combination of tethered cam, security cameras, and my personal favourite, robotic arm rides, you can get all the shots you need. Robotic arm rides are fantastic for moving cameras, by the way. Not only do they move at a constant speed, you can also change the focal length by zooming, and they also have a wider range of motion. Something I started playing with in the cinematics was the rolling of the camera, which not only makes the shot a bit more unique, but it also starts to look a bit like drone footage, which is kind of cool. And with a bit of foresight, you can use these robotic arms to set up shots to make things that shouldn't move. The shot of the Smoggy Heights blimp coming into the island was achieved by having a robotic arm coaster, and this was done for the hot air balloon in the epilogue as well, with just a normal camera minus the user interface. Which brings me to the epilogue and the storytelling in general. If there is one thing that I want to achieve with these projects, it's to make them not just a rollercoaster POV. The radio voiceover set the scene of this place that I wanted to be in the same universe, in the same world, and talking about the Zephyr postal service and how they used to use the tracks to transport mail gives an in-world reason as to why there was room to build a roller coaster in the first place. The epilogue is a call and response for my next project. This is in the same way that the sample of Primal Scream loaded is a reference to the closing shot of my Smoggy Heights video. And at this point, I know where that balloon is going to land, and I'm excited for you guys to find out as well. And that's about it. Thanks for listening, and I hope this was interesting. My name's Fog. Take care.